Okay, I think we're live.
Great.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today on this third Boundless webinar session. Most of you may know us by now, but for those who are joining for the first time, I'm Carlota Ramos. I'm the marketing manager here at Ballast. And as you can see today, we're back in the office. I'm very happy to be back. Today, Cindy Barks, who's Boundless co-founder and CTO, will be showing us how to boost your network audit and compliance capabilities by using the Boundless platform and Meraki Dashboard API. So before we start, remember that any questions you may have can be asked through the Q&A tool, who's on the right side of your screen. And if you're joining through YouTube, you can leave us your questions in comments. As per last times, all answers will be answered through our channel, our LinkedIn page, sorry. So if you don't follow us yet, don't hesitate to start doing it by now. After this introduction, I think we're good to start. So Sydney, the stage is yours.
Okay, thank you, Carlota. So hello again, everyone, and welcome to the third episode of the Boundless webinar series. At this series, we have a set of 30-minute speed sessions where we show you how you can use the Boundless digital platforms to automate all of your Cisco Meraki network infrastructure and management by using Cisco Meraki APIs. Now, this is for you if you might be part of an IT team where you might often find yourself performing manual, repetitive, and time-consuming tasks. And maybe you would like to automate some of these tasks so that you can become more efficient and cut out errors and reduce downtime. But you might not have the resources or time to have your team dive into API programming. And you're just looking for a solution so that you can get the job done faster without too much effort. So if this sounds like you, then you're in the right place right now. In the next 30 minutes, we'll show you ways that you can automate your network management tasks by using the Cisco Meraki APIs and without writing a single line of code. Today, we'll be focusing on the Boundless Compliance Toolkit. So this is a set of tools that allows you to easily make sure that your network configurations stay compliant with any corporate and internal rules that you've set up. And they will alert you when that's no longer the case. So this can be very useful if you need to maintain compliance with legal standards or just keeping your internal organizational requirements standardized. So again, to introduce myself before we start, my name is Sydney, and I'm the founder and CTO of Boundless Digital. For 7 years now, we've worked with over 200 Cisco Meraki customers and partners, helping them to deploy tens of thousands of Wi-Fi hotspots and captive portals worldwide. We've also developed many customized scripts using the Cisco Meraki APIs, and we've helped IT teams speed up their work and reduce their manual errors and shorten their downtimes. So if you missed our last few speed sessions, you can always go check those out on our YouTube channel, Boundless Digital, and get back up to speed. And you can see demos of the multiple ways that Boundless Digital helps you automate your infrastructure. But since you're here right now, let me just give you a quick recap of what we talked about. So we began by asking, what is network automation and why is it important? Now you've probably seen for yourself that when you're managing a large number of networks, you might often spend time running repetitive and complex tasks. And these can require your full concentration for long periods of time. And it only takes one small error, one small mistake that can cost you hours to fix it. If you had a way to automate these tasks, we've seen that you could almost completely eliminate accidental errors and accomplish 100 times more work than before with the same amount of effort. And because you reduce accidental errors, this means that you can expect a lot less unplanned downtime for your networks and resolve issues much more quickly. Historically, automation has been quite complicated when it comes to networking. Either you're manually making changes through some graphical user interface, or if you've been lucky, you've had a command line interface, or CLI, which has helped you simplify some of your management tasks. However, using a CLI can be very complicated. You have to memorize a large number of arcane commands, and it's not always obvious about how to interface a CLI with typical programming language, such as Python or PHP. Nowadays, the API is replacing the CLI as the preferred method for automating your infrastructure. And that's because it gives you a much more flexible way of integrating your custom programming languages with your scripts, and it's much simpler to use. Next, we took a look at the Boundless digital solution for deploying large numbers of networks using the Cisco Meraki APIs and the Boundless Batch Network Creator. The Boundless Network Creator lets you deploy thousands of Meraki networks and devices within minutes. You can define a CSV file with all of the parameters for your network, such as tags, devices, and templates, and then you can define your own custom workflow for creating your network. This means that every network gets created with no mistakes and results in a much faster deployment process. This goes much further than the native batch Meraki network creator because you can configure a much larger number of steps thanks to the usage of the Meraki APIs. Finally, we took a look at the Boundless Flex templates. They're just like native Meraki templates, but they give you much more flexibility because you can define your configuration once and deploy it to thousands of networks. Then you can also go and customize these networks afterwards if you need to make custom configuration changes. You can also use these templates with MV, camera, or system manager networks, which is something that's not currently possible with the Meraki templates. And as a result, you can benefit from the massive configuration deployments and maintain consistency across your organization, while at the same time eliminating the restrictions that you might find with native Meraki templates. Now, the thing about using a templating system is that it gives you a way to apply changes to a large number of networks at once. But if you're not using templates today, that means that you're probably manually applying changes to your networks one by one. So what might that look like in your organization if you're making one-off changes manually? Well, in most organizations, people address issues as they come up. And that means that over time, you might make many small configuration changes as they're needed. This might seem harmless at first, but if we take a step back and look at the consequences, you can see that you could have several members of your team managing the networks, and it's likely that each person has their own individual, unique way of doing things. And that can lead to slight variations across your organization as far as how your configurations are applied. Additionally, each person has specialized knowledge that they've acquired, which is only stored in their heads. It's not codified, standardized, or persisted into any standard format so that others can easily access and share it. Another thing is that manual configuration changes and small exceptional one-off changes can quickly add up over time. And this results in something that we call configuration drift. This is when you start with a very organized and standardized method of configuring your networks, and over time, due to these small accumulating changes, that standardization becomes more and more chaotic. When configuration drift arises in your organization, you lose that visibility and clarity into your network that you've once had. And it becomes very difficult to easily answer certain questions about how your networks are configured. For example, if you need to find out which of your 1,000 networks have a certain setting enabled, this can be very time-consuming as you have to manually go through and check them one by one. You're no longer able to gather precise information about the global state of your network or your organization. And that means that when you have an incident, it takes you much more time to identify the root cause and properly resolve it. This results in you having much more downtime and longer downtime incidents, and much longer times to resolution. The only way that you can avoid this situation is by using some type of configuration compliance and auditing tool. What you need is a set of tools that can help you maintain order and resolve this natural tendency towards chaos. Such a tool would give you the ability to define constraints on your networks and set up rules that define how your configurations should be made. Then it would automatically monitor the state of your networks and watch as all changes are applied in real time, so that whenever a change was made that defied one of your constraints, it could immediately alert you so that you could resolve the issue. With a compliance tool in place such as this, you would be able to much more easily keep your networks organized and ensure that your configurations remain standardized. Additionally, this makes the knowledge held by your team members concrete and standardized and no longer fragile and only residing in their heads. As a result, you gain much more transparency into the state of your organization and your networks, and your team members can easily exchange and share knowledge much more quickly with less ambiguity. You would essentially define the one correct way of doing things, which could easily be agreed on by all members of your team. This vastly simplifies everything from change management to traceability for your configuration changes. Here at Boundless, we have come up with a set of compliance tools using the Cisco Meraki APIs, which will help you realize the vision that we've painted above. Our compliance toolkit lets you define compliance rules to apply to one or more Meraki organizations. You can define constraints on things such as security rules, content filters, naming conventions around networks and devices, and you can also ensure that any tags you use stay compliant with your internal standardizations, and that helps you keep your tagging organized. So right now, let me take you through a demo of the Boundless Compliance Toolkit so that you can see exactly what we're talking about. Now, before we dive into the compliance toolkit, I'll show you the state of my test Meraki organization here. We have a certain list of networks with a certain set of tags, and we have a few networks that follow a certain convention. They have the name network with a suffix of 2 characters. Now, in order to find out what's going on for my networks, we'll first look at the security compliance tool. A good use case for the security compliance tool is that let's imagine you have a certain list of sites that you need to maintain. As a blacklist or block list to filter any content for all of your networks. And one day you might determine that there's a threat that's just been released, a new type of malware, and you need to quickly block off access to a certain site for all of your networks and make sure that that stays applied. Also, if anyone ever goes and manually removes a site from this block list, you need to have some kind of indication of it so that you can say, okay, this was allowed, or maybe we should go put that back. Well, the Boundless Compliance Security Compliance tool lets you do that. You can create what we call a rule set, which is a set of compliance rules that you can define. Here we've created a rule set in which we would like to block Facebook across all of our networks. In the rule set, we can define certain laws, such as content filtering, which URLs are allowed or blocked. We can define security appliance services, as well as layer 3 rules or layer 7 rules. And here you've seen that in this particular rule set, we've created an example rule where we deny access to the Facebook network. And we can use any of the layer 7 rules that exist within Meraki. We can also define other things in the compliance rules, port forwarding rules, NAT rules, and other SSID rules for Wi-Fi. Now, once we've defined our rule set, since Boundless has synchronized and maintained synchronization with your Meraki dashboard, we can see an immediate alert of how many networks are not compliant with our rules. Just to give you the full story, we have 37 networks in our organization, and we see that we have alerts on 28 of those networks. We can click on the rule to see which networks are non-compliant, and we see that all of the networks we've created here for test networks have a non-compliant level 7 rule, meaning we need to look at that network and see what the problem is. If we look at this alert in detail, we can see that there is a missing rule for this network, and the missing rule is the rule that the layer 7 firewall rule, which denies access to Facebook. Now, if this rule is okay, if we intended to have this Facebook missing for this particular network, we can dismiss the rule and it goes away. and the alert goes away. Or we can go back into Meraki and add the layer 7 rule if we actually need it there, and the alert goes away as well. So this is just an example of how you can use security features in a security compliance toolkit to make sure all of your security rules stay up to date throughout all of your networks in your organization. Now, the next case we will look at is tag compliance. Tags are a very useful feature for managing large infrastructure in your organization. But one drawback is, again, that the tags are done by people, and there's no native Meraki management system to enforce certain conventions around tagging. And that means that if one person makes a mistake in a spelling error around a tag, or slightly uses a different spelling for a tag, for example, they can use a capital Wi-Fi as opposed to lowercase Wi-Fi, then once that happens, you experience configuration drift in your tags. And that means that whenever you go to apply certain configurations based on those tags, those configuration tools no longer work. If you would like to apply a firewall rule, for example, to everything tagged Paris or Europe, if for some reason you have a network that's slightly misspelled, that configuration will not be applied, and you will have a security rule or some kind of other potential source of downtime. What we've created here at Boundless is a platform, a management system, to let you see at a glance all of the tags used in your organization and how they're applied by looking at the different resources that your tags are applied to. You can see how tags are applied to things such as networks, devices, and this can include switch tags, switch port tags, routers, security, MX switches and firewalls, and MV systems, and also tags for switch ports. You can add or remove tags to one or more devices. You can by simply selecting all of the devices and click add or remove tags. And this is quite useful because if you decide to organize or standardize your tag conventions, you can easily go and search and replace for all tags in your organization and replace them with the updated tag within seconds. So this can help you quickly understand how your network is structured, how it's organized, and reorganize it if you need to. We also have added an intelligence system to our tags to let you know when we think there might be an accidental error with the tags that are used in your system. For example, here we've added an intentional misspelling around the tag Wi-Fi R. And what the system does is that it looks at all of your tags, and when there's a tag with a slight spelling error, it sends you an alert to say, here are two tags that are really similar. Maybe you should check and verify those. If those tags are what you intended, you can quickly simply select the tag and click OK to accept it, or click dismiss to say this tag is what I intended, so we can get rid of the alert. Or you can change the tag and click the checkbox, and it will go and fix the tag and rename the tag in your system in Meraki. So the alert will disappear and it will become exactly as you need it. Now here we still see the alert because the tags have the same spelling but different capitalization. So once we alert it again, the alert will disappear. So once again, to recap, this gives you a tool so that you can easily maintain tag compliance, standardization, and organize tags, how they're used throughout your organization. Now, this is very useful if you're using a lot of tags and not using templates and making manual changes over your organization today. The final compliance tool that we will look at today is around name compliance or nomenclature. So here we've set an example where, well, let's take a step back. Often when you're managing your organization, you might have a certain set of rules or standards you use around how you name things. This might be how you name your networks, how you name your SSIDs, how you name your devices, or anything. And when you're deploying a network, sometimes those conventions might not be respected. For example, there can be a typo in the naming process, or people just might not pay attention in detail or might have a lapse of attention of what exactly they're supposed to follow as far as the name convention. And this creates problems because once your network is deployed, if you have a customer with an incident or downtime, it can take you a lot extra time to find out what device or what network that incident applies to if they don't follow your naming convention. What we've done is we've helped create a name compliance tool here, which lets you define the compliance rules for the nomenclature of your infrastructure. And when something is named improperly, it will again give you an alert to what that improper naming is. You can see an example here where we have said, we have a rule which says our networks must start with network. Now, just to give you a recap again, we have a few example networks here. Some of those don't start with network, and a few of those do start with the network. So what I've done is I've created a compliance rule to apply to the network, but I could also apply that to devices, switch ports, switch SSIDs or VLAN names. And I have said that this compliance, the network's names, should match a regular expression, meaning it should start with the word network, have a space, and have 2 characters at the end that are uppercase characters. I've also made a secondary rule which says the network name must also contain the value network. Now, you can use all types of operators for managing your compliance. You can say the name should equal a certain thing, should start with a certain prefix, it should have a certain prefix at the end, it should contain a certain string or not contain a certain string. Or the most powerful rule is that it should match the regular expression. And if you're familiar with regular expressions, they give you the ultimate power in how your name's nomenclature rules are defined. If you don't feel comfortable with creating complex rules, you also have the option to simply enter a list. And for this, you just simply upload a list, a file, or enter the list here in this folder, in this box. And any name that does not match what's applied in this box will trigger an alert. So once we save this rule, we can look at our list of rules again. And you see that this has triggered an alert for 16 networks in our organization. So once we look at the networks, at the alert, we can see that all of the networks which don't follow the convention network capital letters, they're triggered as an alert here, and we can see immediately that those don't follow our naming convention. And again, we click directly on the alert detail, and it tells us that this network name fails the rule where it matches this regular expression. So there you go. You have a tool to give you a quick insight into how your names are applied to all of your networks, SSIDs, VLANs, devices, or other things that can be named in your organization. Now, with these 3 tools, the security, tag, and name compliance toolkit, you can quickly make sure that your network conventions stay compliant with the rules you've defined internally, and that saves you enormous amounts of time from going through and trying to figure out where an incident has occurred and how can you fix it. In the future, we will be rolling out generalized compliance tools, which will basically let you define any parameter in your Meraki organization. And whenever there is a network which does not respect that parameter, it will give you a similar alert to what you've seen here so that you can go in, check if the network is non-compliant, and if so, then you can correct it. So that wraps up our demonstration part for today. And that also wraps up our presentation. Now, today we've looked at manual network configuration, and we've seen how that can lead to configuration drift over time. We've also seen how that creates a need for compliance tools so that you can maintain standardization and order. And we've shown you how the Boundless Compliance Toolkit offers you a set of tools for enforcing compliance and security rules, as well as content filtering, and enforcing network, device name, and tag compliance across your organization. In the next section of the Boundless webinar series, we'll take a quick look at a special Boundless offer, which is the Boundless Captive Portal. And we'll show you how you can deploy a Wi-Fi captive portal to thousands of networks within minutes without spending hours configuring complex captive portal commands And you can create customized splash pages and authentication methods for your guest Wi-Fi users. So that wraps up everything for today. And if you have any questions, let's hear them. And if not, back to you, Carlota.
I think it's good. Thank you very much, Sydney. That was great, as always. So far, I don't think we have any questions, neither on YouTube, neither on the chat. But then again, there may be questions that arise for the next day. So please don't hesitate to contact us, either through LinkedIn or on our website, if you have any questions. Now, I wanted to ask you, Sydney, what happens if one of the audience that we have here today wants to test the platform to see how it can work for them? Because there will be different scenarios for it, different use cases. So is there a way that the users can...
Yes, thank you, Carlota. Yes, if you would like to test the platform, and if you're present today, I don't know if we have a link to the registration form anywhere, but if not, you can simply email us at contact@boundlessdigital.com. And you can also visit our website, www.boundlessdigital.com. But if you would like to have a demo of the platform, just shoot us a quick email at contact@boundlessdigital.com. We'll have a call with you and get you set up so that you can test out the platform. And we can have a talk about how we can help you automate all of your tasks so that you can get your job done a lot faster.
That's great. Okay. And again, don't hesitate to start following us on LinkedIn if you're not doing it yet. And if you want to watch the replay of either this or the previous webinars that we have had, you can find all of them on our YouTube channel. I think that's all for today. Thank you very much for participating in this webinar, and we hope to see you back again in 2 weeks from now on the 4th webinar series on captive portals. Thank you very much, Sydney.
Thank you.
And thank you, everyone. Hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.